In the icy solitude of Alaska, Nathan Brooks discovers two wounded polar bears, a protective mother, Echo, and her vulnerable cub, Snow, struggling for survival on a frozen lake. As Nathan cares for them, old friend Frank Dawson unexpectedly arrives, reigniting past tensions and painful memories. Together with wildlife expert Cara Mitchell, they brave a fierce snowstorm, mending wounds both physical and emotional. In saving the bears, Nathan finds redemption. Friendship is rekindled, and beneath the shimmering Aurora, all are reminded that compassion can thaw even the deepest frost. The town of Frostmore lay tucked away in a remote corner of Alaska, a place seemingly forgotten by time, where endless winters painted the landscape in shades of icy blue and ghostly white. During the harshest months, daylight became scarce, and darkness ruled supreme beneath vast, star-speckled skies. Snow lay thick and heavy, covering rooftops and frozen lakes alike in silent submission to winter's unyielding grip. Most inhabitants had long learned the rhythms of this unforgiving season, retreating into warm cabins as soon as the frigid dusk descended. Yet for Nathan Brooks, solitude had become more than a habit. It was a chosen way of life. Nathan Brooks was a ruggedly built man, just over 50, with broad shoulders and a powerful physique tempered by years of hard outdoor living. His face, lined deeply by the elements, held a quiet dignity, and his crystal blue eyes mirrored both his strength and quiet sorrow. His silver-flecked hair, always slightly disheveled, and his full beard gave him a wild, untamed appearance, softened only by his gentle demeanor. Nathan was known locally as a reclusive yet dependable figure, one who valued peace, isolation, and the natural simplicity of life above all else. A former wildlife ranger, he now spent his days hunting, fishing, and maintaining his sturdy log cabin, nestled securely beside the vast, shimmering expanse of Lake Aurora. Tonight, a biting wind whipped around the wooden walls of his humble cabin, creaking gently under nature's persistent battering. The temperature had plummeted significantly, ice forming intricate patterns upon the window panes. Nathan had settled comfortably by the stone fireplace, nursing a steaming cup of coffee and idly watching flames dance gently in the hearth. His cabin's interior was modest, adorned simply with aged wooden furniture, a hand-carved oak table, and walls bearing a few worn photographs that hinted at a past he rarely discussed. Nathan was about to drift in his sleep when suddenly an eerie sound pierced the silent night, jolting him upright. He strained his ears, attempting to decipher the unfamiliar noise. It came again, a haunting, mournful cry drifting from the direction of Lake Aurora. His heart quickened. He'd never heard such desperation carried upon the frigid wind. Without hesitation, Nathan grabbed his heavy coat, sturdy boots, and a flashlight, pushing open the cabin door into the relentless cold. Outside, snow fell steadily, illuminated only by pale moonlight filtering weakly through low-hanging clouds. The frozen lake spread endlessly before him, a vast expanse of silvery ice glinting beneath scattered stars. The air was razor-sharp, slicing painfully at exposed skin, yet Nathan moved steadily toward the sound that had beckoned him. As he neared the lake's edge, his flashlight beam revealed two shapes struggling against the crystalline ice. Two polar bears, stark white and glistening, locked in helpless agony. Drawing cautiously closer, Nathan's breath caught. He could see now that both animals were gravely injured. The larger bear, clearly an adult female, bore a deep, bleeding wound along her hind leg. Beside her, whimpering softly, lay a much smaller cub whose left paw was swollen grotesquely. The mother's fierce yet pain-filled eyes fixed sharply on Nathan, communicating a silent plea beneath their instinctual caution. Her soft growls of warning were more a desperate expression of fear than genuine aggression. Nathan understood the gravity of the situation. He was well aware of the danger inherent in approaching wild predators, even wounded ones. Yet his experience and empathy outweighed caution. He spoke softly, steadily, his voice carrying warmth and reassurance. "Easy now, girl. I'm here to help you. You and your cub will be all right." He knelt slowly onto the frozen ground, keeping his movements deliberate and unthreatening. The mother bear, whom Nathan instinctively named Echo for her haunting cries, shivered with exhaustion, her breathing ragged. The cub, Snow, gazed up fearfully, eyes wide with confusion and pain. Snow's fur, softer and brighter than his mother's, reflected the moonlight like freshly fallen snowflakes, making the cub appear heartbreakingly vulnerable against the icy backdrop. Nathan knew immediate action was necessary. Left exposed to the brutal cold, neither would survive until morning. Rising carefully, he retrieved a large tarp from the shed behind his cabin, swiftly improvising a sturdy sled-like structure, hoping it would hold their weight. Returning, Nathan cautiously approached again, murmuring comforting words. Echo watched warily, still growling softly, though her strength ebbed noticeably. Nathan offered small scraps of dried fish from his pocket, gently tossing them toward her as gestures of trust. Slowly, Echo ceased her growls, sniffing cautiously before allowing Snow to accept Nathan's presence as well. With painstaking care, Nathan eased Snow onto the tarp first, feeling the cub tremble under his touch. Snow emitted a weak whimper, but the warmth of Nathan's hand seemed to reassure the tiny creature. Echo watched intently, her maternal instincts visibly warring with her body's painful limitations. Nathan then moved closer to Echo, gently coaxing her onto the makeshift sled with soft encouragement and steady patience. Eventually, Echo yielded, grunting quietly as her massive frame settled heavily onto the tarp, trusting him enough to allow this fragile alliance. Straining under their combined weight, Nathan dragged the makeshift sled slowly and steadily toward his cabin, the ice and snow crackling beneath. His muscles burned from effort, yet determination drove him forward until finally, with great relief, he reached his home. Once inside, Nathan quickly closed the door, the cabin's warmth immediately wrapping around them. He guided Echo and Snow carefully onto blankets near the fireplace, preparing clean towels and first aid supplies. Echo's eyes remained fixed upon Nathan, her wary gaze softening slowly as warmth enveloped her battered body. Her breathing steadied slightly, and Snow curled closer against her side, immediately seeking comfort. Nathan cleaned their wounds gently, whispering quiet reassurances as he worked, conscious always of the thin line between trust and instinctual aggression. Once finished, Nathan carefully bandaged their injuries, then sat back, observing the bears cautiously explore their temporary haven. The crackling hearth cast soft, flickering shadows upon the walls, and gradually, Echo allowed herself to rest, laying her great head down upon the blanket with a heavy sigh. Snow nestled contentedly against her side, breathing softly and evenly. Nathan watched them thoughtfully, his heart swelling with a sense of profound responsibility and quiet pride. In the solitude of his cabin, warmed by firelight and emboldened by compassion, Nathan Brooks had unknowingly begun a journey that would lead not only to the healing of two extraordinary creatures, but also to the mending of old emotional wounds within himself. As the wind howled softly outside and snow continued to blanket the silent landscape, Nathan leaned back in his worn armchair, weary yet strangely content, unaware of how profoundly this encounter would soon reshape his entire existence. Nathan Brooks awoke to the dim light of dawn filtering weakly through the frost-covered windows of his cabin, casting pale blue shadows over the room. The fireplace, reduced overnight to glowing embers, barely held the biting cold at bay, yet a sense of warmth lingered, created by the presence of his two unusual guests. Echo, the mother polar bear, lay quietly on the soft pile of blankets Nathan had arranged near the hearth. Her powerful chest rose and fell rhythmically, but the wound on her hind leg showed troubling signs of inflammation and swelling. Beside her, nestled tightly against her warm fur, little Snow stirred sleepily, his swollen paw curled protectively beneath him. Nathan rose quietly from his worn armchair, muscles aching slightly from yesterday's strain, and moved with practiced caution toward his guests. Echo's sharp eyes opened immediately at his approach, tracking him warily yet without aggression. He knelt slowly, his rugged face calm and reassuring, and carefully examined Echo's wound. It had worsened overnight, the inflammation now bright red beneath the gauze, and Echo flinched visibly at his touch, letting out a quiet growl of discomfort. "I'm sorry, girl," Nathan murmured soothingly, withdrawing his hand. "This is beyond what I can manage alone." Snow looked up, sensing his mother's distress, eyes wide and questioning. Nathan's heart clenched at the sight of the little cub's trustful gaze. He had known from the outset that caring for wild animals carried immense risks and responsibility, yet abandoning them now was inconceivable. The cold reality was clear. Professional assistance was urgently required. He stood, pulling on a thick woolen jacket over his sturdy frame, and moved decisively toward the shortwave radio in the corner of his modest kitchen. The ancient device crackled to life, the static breaking the quiet atmosphere of his cabin as he dialed the frequency of the Aurora Wildlife Conservation Center. A cheerful, female voice responded almost immediately. "This is Cara Mitchell speaking. How can I help you?" Nathan hesitated, unsure where to begin. Clearing his throat, he replied, "Cara, my name's Nathan Brooks. I've got a rather unique situation here at my cabin near Lake Aurora. I've taken in 2 injured polar bears, an adult female and her cub. The mother's leg wound is deep and possibly infected. She needs more help than I can give." There was a brief silence, filled only with the static from the radio. Then Cara's voice returned, serious yet intrigued. "Polar bears near your cabin? This time of year, that's highly unusual. Are you certain they're stable enough to stay put while I get there?" Nathan glanced toward the bears. Echo watched him with guarded curiosity. Snow had returned to nuzzling against her warmth, seemingly oblivious to the seriousness of the situation. "They're calm enough for now," Nathan assured her, "but the mother's injury worries me. It's swollen, and she seems to be in increasing pain." "Understood," Cara responded immediately, her voice professional yet gently reassuring. "Keep them warm and hydrated. I'll be there as soon as possible, weather permitting, probably within a few hours." After disconnecting, Nathan moved cautiously about his home, trying to ensure the bears remained calm. He brought fresh water and small portions of dried fish, which Echo accepted hesitantly, her trust slowly deepening. Each interaction carried a careful balance of caution and tenderness, gradually bridging the gap between wild instinct and mutual understanding. While Nathan busied himself with preparations, a knock sounded abruptly at the cabin door. He tensed, puzzled, as unexpected visitors were rare in Frostmore. Opening the door, he found the familiar face of old Mrs. Maggie Tanner, a slender, elderly woman who managed Frostmore's general store. Maggie stood small but straight-backed, with a thick woolen coat wrapped tightly around her frail frame. Her gray hair, neatly pulled into a tight bun, accentuated sharp, observant green eyes behind thick-rimmed glasses. Known locally as kindly but no-nonsense, Maggie had always possessed a particular knack for arriving precisely when least expected. "Nathan Brooks," she greeted sternly yet warmly. "You've missed picking up your groceries again, and with the storm coming, I wasn't taking chances. Thought I'd drop them off myself." Nathan smiled softly, stepping aside to let her in. "Apologies, Maggie. Got my hands full here. Appreciate your kindness." As Maggie entered, she halted abruptly, eyes wide behind her glasses at the sight before her. Echo raised her head in alarm. Snow snuggled close, both eyeing the newcomer cautiously. Maggie's mouth opened, closed, and opened again, but no sound emerged. "Maggie," Nathan said slowly, softly guiding her toward the kitchen. "It's a complicated situation. They're injured. I've called Cara Mitchell from the Wildlife Center. They'll be taken care of." Maggie finally exhaled, adjusting her glasses. "Well, Nathan, you've always been unusual, but this, polar bears in your living room? You certainly keep life interesting." Despite her shock, she regained composure, even a twinkle of humor returning to her eyes. "I suppose you'll manage somehow." Always did. Her calm reaction eased Nathan's tension. She quickly set the groceries down, eyeing the bears again with newfound curiosity and respect. I'll leave you to it then, Nathan. Call if you need anything more. Perhaps a spare bedroom for an orca next time? She left, chuckling gently, closing the door softly behind her. Hours passed slowly, snowfall intensifying outside as Nathan waited, vigilant beside his unusual guests. Finally, a firm knock came again at his door. Opening it, he found Cara Mitchell standing in the swirling snow, her breath forming small clouds in the cold air. Cara was striking, about 35 years old, slender yet athletic, with fiery auburn hair cascading from beneath her heavy wool hat. Her bright blue eyes radiated both intelligence and warmth, her face lightly freckled from hours spent outdoors. Wearing professional Arctic gear, Cara exuded capability and compassion, immediately inspiring Nathan's trust. "Mr. Brooks, I'm Cara Mitchell," she said briskly but warmly, stepping inside. Her eyes widened slightly upon seeing the bears, but unlike Maggie, she remained entirely composed. "You weren't kidding," she murmured appreciatively, kneeling slowly to evaluate Echo's injury from a safe distance. "She's beautiful, but she needs urgent professional care." Echo, wary yet calmer than before, allowed Cara's careful approach, recognizing in her manner someone knowledgeable about her kind. Cara meticulously inspected Echo's wound, speaking softly to soothe the great animal. After a tense examination, Cara straightened, meeting Nathan's eyes solemnly. "The wound is infected. She needs treatment beyond basic first aid. However, moving her immediately would be too risky. She and her cub need to remain here until they're more stable." Nathan nodded, relieved by Cara's presence. "Whatever you need, I'll help. This place is theirs as long as necessary." Cara smiled warmly. "I'm glad they found you, Mr. Brooks. Your compassion might have just saved their lives." Outside, the storm intensified further, wrapping the cabin in isolation. Yet inside, a profound warmth began to blossom, born from mutual trust, shared purpose, and the unspoken bond forming between Nathan, Cara, and their wounded guests. The snowstorm intensified rapidly, battering Nathan's secluded cabin relentlessly. Fierce gusts of wind rattled the old wooden structure, shaking window panes and howling mournfully around the chimney. Inside, Nathan Brooks and Cara Mitchell carefully monitored Echo, whose breathing had steadied somewhat under the influence of antibiotics Cara had skillfully administered. Snow, the cub, lay nestled close, his swollen paw bandaged gently, sleeping peacefully at his mother's side. Cara, meticulous yet compassionate, had rearranged the blankets and cushions near the fireplace, creating a safer, warmer haven for the bears. As they worked quietly, Nathan noticed Cara frequently glancing toward the blizzard outside, her blue eyes tinged with anxiety. "It's getting worse," she murmured, standing up to peer through a frost-glazed window. Nathan nodded, uneasy himself. "Storms like this tend to lock us in for days," he replied, solemnly. "At least we have enough supplies." Cara managed a small, reassuring smile. Her confidence calmed Nathan's nerves, providing stability amidst the chaos outside. Suddenly, heavy knocking rattled the cabin's front door, jolting both Nathan and Cara from their quiet routine. Echo raised her massive head warily, emitting a low growl of discomfort. Nathan swiftly moved toward the entrance, grabbing his coat instinctively, wary of who might brave such conditions. Swinging open the door, the icy wind nearly knocked him backward. Standing before him, hunched over and half covered by snow, was a familiar yet entirely unexpected figure, Frank Dawson. Frank stood slightly shorter than Nathan, but stockier, broad-shouldered, and sturdy despite his evident discomfort. In his late 50s, Frank's rugged face had weathered significantly since Nathan last saw him. His steel-gray hair was now thinning, and his neatly trimmed beard held streaks of white. Frank's dark eyes, always intense and probing, now carried additional depth from years of hidden sorrow. He wore a thick navy blue parka, heavily soaked with snow, and his gloved hands trembled visibly, perhaps from cold or from the awkward tension of this reunion. "Nathan," Frank's voice cracked hoarsely against the wind, hesitation evident in his manner. "My truck got stuck down near the lake road. The storm caught me off guard. You're my only chance out here." Nathan hesitated briefly, his muscles tensing involuntarily as past wounds resurfaced sharply. Frank and Nathan had been close friends until tragedy, a fatal accident during an ice fishing trip many years ago, claimed the life of Nathan's younger brother, Samuel. Nathan had blamed Frank, holding him responsible for taking unnecessary risks on the thin ice, and the friendship had shattered bitterly. "Come in," Nathan said curtly, stepping aside to let him pass. As Frank entered, he noticed Cara, nodding politely without recognition. "Cara Mitchell." She introduced herself firmly yet kindly, stepping forward. Frank offered a stiff handshake, briefly mentioning his name, before his attention snapped abruptly toward the extraordinary sight inside the cabin. Echo and snow. His eyes widened, astonishment briefly softening his typically hardened features. "You've got polar bears in here, Nathan. Is this some kind of rescue operation?" Frank's voice held genuine wonder mixed with cautious uncertainty. Nathan moved to the kitchen, avoiding eye contact momentarily as he poured hot coffee into a chipped ceramic mug. "They're injured. Cara's from the Wildlife Center," he explained tersely, handing Frank the steaming beverage. Frank accepted gratefully, warming his frostbitten fingers around the mug. Silence lingered awkwardly, punctuated only by the crackle of the fireplace and the steady breathing of the bears. Cara, perceptive and empathetic, sensed the tension instantly. "We're hoping to stabilize them before transferring them to our facility," she interjected calmly, hoping to ease the discomfort. Frank nodded thoughtfully, eyes still captivated by the mother bear's majestic yet vulnerable presence. Echo stared back warily, sensing unfamiliarity. "Beautiful creatures," Frank murmured sincerely, admiration evident despite his gruff exterior. The conversation remained sparse and uneasy as minutes passed. Nathan busied himself adjusting the firewood, unwilling to confront the emotional undercurrent filling the small room. Frank, clearing his throat uncomfortably, finally spoke softly, almost hesitantly. "Nathan, I know it's been a long time. I wouldn't blame you for throwing me back out there, but I'm grateful you didn't." Nathan's movements paused, tension visible in his broad shoulders. Without turning, he muttered simply, "Couldn't leave anyone out in this storm, Frank. Not even you." Frank sighed deeply, guilt heavy in his voice. "Not a day goes by that I don't regret what happened to Samuel. I should have known better than to risk it on thin ice. I was reckless." His voice trembled, cracking with years of suppressed pain. Nathan turned slowly, meeting Frank's remorseful gaze for the first time. The bitterness he had harbored so long began softening, though slowly and cautiously. "We both lost him, Frank," Nathan responded quietly, his voice strained yet gentler than before. "Carrying that blame forever won't bring him back." Cara quietly observed, respecting their delicate exchange while attending discreetly to Echo, ensuring the bears remained calm. The emotional atmosphere gradually shifted as both men silently acknowledged the heavy truth between them. Echo's deep growl of discomfort suddenly broke their introspective silence, pulling their attention immediately back to the bears. Nathan knelt beside Cara, worry apparent as Echo's distress intensified. Frank stepped forward instinctively, surprising himself, concern genuine in his expression. "What can I do to help?" Cara smiled gratefully, immediately directing Frank to fetch additional blankets and medical supplies from her heavy pack near the door. Frank quickly complied, moving with newfound determination. He knelt beside Cara, carefully handing her antiseptics and gauze. As he watched Nathan and Cara gently comfort Echo, Frank found himself moved deeply by their compassion. His heart ached at the raw vulnerability of these powerful yet helpless creatures. Under Cara's patient instructions, Frank and Nathan worked closely together, applying fresh bandages to Echo's wound, ensuring minimal discomfort. Snow whimpered softly, nudging his mother's paw anxiously. Frank reached out hesitantly, gently stroking the cub's soft fur. Snow's eyes closed, comforted by Frank's tentative touch. Nathan glanced over, surprised by the tenderness on Frank's typically hardened face. In that moment, old grudges seemed trivial compared to the compassion and unity required in their current circumstance. Hours passed quietly, each person silently occupied by their shared mission, gradually easing Echo's pain and stabilizing her condition. As darkness enveloped the cabin, Frank finally broke the lingering silence, voice softer, humbled. "Thank you, Nathan, for helping me, and for letting me be part of something meaningful today." Nathan's stern face softened noticeably, and a slight, weary smile appeared. "We can't change what happened, Frank, but we can choose how we move forward. Maybe it's time to try." Frank nodded solemnly, gratitude evident. Cara discreetly excused herself to check the radio for weather updates, sensing the men needed private space. As she moved away, Frank hesitated briefly before quietly extending his hand toward Nathan. Nathan grasped it firmly, the years of hurt and mistrust slowly melting away in a single gesture of reconciliation. The storm raged relentlessly outside, trapping them together in the isolated cabin. Yet inside, warmth and tentative forgiveness gradually overcame lingering bitterness. Surrounded by the gentle breathing of the sleeping bears, Nathan and Frank silently began to repair bonds long thought irreparable, their shared compassion illuminating a hopeful path forward through the fierce Alaskan storm. Cara Mitchell had arranged fresh blankets by the fire, her auburn hair glowing softly in the firelight as she knelt beside Echo and Snow. Echo lay quietly, breathing steady and calm, her condition visibly improving under Cara's attentive care. Snow, the small cub, nuzzled comfortably at his mother's side, playful curiosity gradually returning to his gentle, inquisitive eyes. Cara's precise yet gentle movements revealed her deep compassion, and Nathan found himself increasingly grateful for her reassuring presence in the isolated cabin. Outside, however, a darker threat loomed. Nathan paused by the frosted window, his rugged face grim as he stared into the gathering gloom. Thick clouds rolled ominously overhead, the wind howling fiercely as it battered the sturdy cabin walls. "Looks like another storm is coming, stronger than the last," Nathan warned quietly, glancing toward Cara and Frank. Frank Dawson sat near the fire, his sturdy frame tense yet steady. Despite his earlier discomfort, Frank now moved with a newfound ease around Nathan and Cara, assisting calmly whenever needed. The gruffness in his voice had softened significantly, revealing hidden depths of kindness beneath his rugged exterior. His thinning gray hair was tousled by anxious fingers as he absorbed Nathan's warning. "Will the bears be safe if we're stuck here longer?" Frank asked, genuine worry shadowing his features. Cara replied confidently, yet cautiously, her bright eyes reflecting careful thought. "Echo is healing remarkably well, and Snow's paw is less swollen. Still, we need to be cautious. Stress from a severe storm might set back their recovery." Frank nodded solemnly, clearly troubled by the implications. Nathan turned from the window, his piercing blue eyes meeting Frank's gaze meaningfully. "We've weathered worse storms than this," Nathan reassured softly. His tone was careful, yet his words held layered meaning. "Yes, we have," Frank agreed, his voice quieter, laden with memories. For a moment, silence hung heavily between them, broken only by the crackling fire and the faint breathing of the bears. Cara watched discreetly, sensing an important conversation unfolding. She stood, gathering medical supplies quietly. "I'll check our provisions again," she said diplomatically, giving them privacy. Frank rubbed his gloved hands together thoughtfully, clearly uncomfortable yet compelled to speak. "Nathan, about Samuel. I want you to know everything. You deserve the truth. I've carried this burden too long." Nathan tensed, but this time he listened carefully, ready to finally confront their shared past. Frank spoke slowly, deliberately, his eyes haunted. It wasn't recklessness, Nathan. Samuel insisted we try the thinner ice. He thought he saw someone stranded out there. You remember his heart, always trying to help. By the time I realized the ice was weak, it was too late. I've never forgiven myself, but I couldn't let you blame him, so I took your anger. Nathan's breath caught, his chest tightening sharply. He had blamed Frank for years, never imagining this alternative truth. Memories rushed back vividly. Samuel, younger by several years, earnest and generous to a fault, always the first to lend a helping hand. Nathan's eyes filled suddenly, grief raw again, yet softened now by newfound understanding. I had no idea, Nathan whispered hoarsely. You protected his memory at your own expense. I misjudged you terribly. Frank offered a gentle, forgiving smile, placing a firm hand on Nathan's shoulder. You lost a brother. Nathan, I lost my best friend. We both carried that pain too long. Maybe it's time to let it heal. Nathan met Frank's gaze gratefully, silent forgiveness passing clearly between them. Cara re-entered quietly, sensing the emotional moment had passed. The provisions should hold. We'll be safe here, she reassured, her voice soothing. Frank nodded appreciatively, helping her adjust Echo's bedding comfortably. The atmosphere within the cabin shifted profoundly, tension dissipating as honesty and understanding filled the void left by years of misunderstanding. Echo, sensing the calmer mood, relaxed visibly, resting her large head against Cara's hand with newfound trust. Snow stirred playfully, his small paws batting gently at the fabric edges of a blanket. Nathan chuckled softly, marveling at the cub's resilience and innocence. Frank smiled warmly, the lines around his eyes softening significantly as he watched the gentle interaction between human and animal. Just as peace settled comfortably over the cabin, an insistent banging startled them. Nathan rushed to the door, opening it swiftly to find Sheriff Will Stanton standing in the howling wind, snow blowing fiercely around his stocky frame. Sheriff Stanton, a broad-shouldered man in his early 60s, was known throughout Frostmore for his gruff but fair demeanor. His salt-and-pepper mustache framed a serious face, and his authoritative presence demanded instant respect. Nathan, we've got a serious situation, Stanton announced urgently, stepping inside quickly and shaking snow from his heavy jacket. The storm's much worse than anticipated. Communications are down, roads impassable. Town's in lockdown. Are you all secure here? His eyes fell abruptly on the polar bears, widening slightly with surprise. Well, this isn't what I expected, he muttered dryly, recovering composure quickly. Nathan quickly explained the bears' rescue, Cara's expertise, and Frank's presence. Stanton nodded thoughtfully, clearly impressed by their efforts. All right, he conceded gruffly. I'll report back once the road's clear. Stay put, keep the bears calm. This storm won't relent easily. With a firm handshake, Stanton disappeared back into the swirling snow, leaving them with renewed awareness of their precarious isolation. Nathan quickly reinforced cabin windows. Cara attended Echo's medications and comfort, and Frank gathered additional firewood from the porch, stacking it meticulously beside the hearth. The fierce wind increased, shaking walls ominously, intensifying the urgency within the small sanctuary they had built. Echo shifted restlessly, anxiety growing palpable in her eyes. Cara knelt, stroking her gently, murmuring reassuringly until the great bear settled once more, trusting completely now in her gentle caretaker. Hours passed tensely, yet the unity among Nathan, Cara, and Frank grew stronger, solidified by shared purpose and newfound honesty. Frank worked tirelessly beside Nathan, quiet companionship gradually replacing past hostility. Cara's reassuring professionalism and compassionate demeanor anchored them, offering steady calm amidst uncertainty. Late in the night, as the storm finally peaked, violent gusts roaring around them, Frank paused thoughtfully, breaking the tense silence softly. Samuel would have been proud of you, Nathan. proud of what you've done for these animals, and for your willingness to forgive." Nathan smiled gently, grief lingering yet softened by newfound peace. He'd be proud of both of us, Frank, for choosing forgiveness over bitterness. Outside, snow piled high, relentlessly sealing them within their isolated sanctuary. Yet inside, hearts thawed completely, old wounds finally healing beneath mutual understanding and compassion. Echo slept peacefully, her breathing calm and deep, healing significantly progressed under their attentive care. Snow dreamed peacefully beside her, innocence untouched by storms of past or present. As dawn broke softly, the fierce blizzard finally eased, leaving behind a pristine, silent landscape. Nathan, Cara, and Frank, exhausted yet deeply connected, knew they had weathered not only nature's fury, but also the deeper storms within their hearts. Together, beneath the tranquil dawn, they waited patiently, knowing rescue would soon come, strengthened by friendship, trust, and the transformative power of forgiveness. The storm descended with relentless fury, wrapping Nathan's isolated cabin in impenetrable curtains of snow and ice. Outside, trees bent painfully beneath the wind's power, branches cracking like brittle bones, echoing harshly through the darkness. Visibility dropped to zero, and the howling wind pressed fiercely against the sturdy cabin walls, threatening to strip away their shelter piece by piece. Inside, Nathan, Frank, and Cara moved methodically, reinforcing windows with thick planks and ceiling drafts to retain precious warmth. The fireplace roared steadily, offering vital comfort as cold seeped relentlessly through gaps in the wooden structure. Echo rested quietly, her massive frame curled protectively around Snow, yet tension shone clearly in her watchful eyes, sensing the worsening storm. Cara's attentive presence had greatly improved Echo's injury, but now Snow's health was rapidly deteriorating. The small cub, usually energetic and curious, had grown worryingly lethargic, his small body shivering occasionally despite the warm blankets. Nathan knelt beside Snow, carefully placing a gentle hand on the cub's side, concern etching lines deeply into his rugged face. "He's weakening," Nathan said quietly, glancing up anxiously at Cara. Her brows knitted tightly. She checked the cub's pulse and breathing meticulously, her calm blue eyes revealing deepening worry. "He might be developing an infection," Cara murmured, voice edged with urgency. "We need to stabilize his temperature and administer antibiotics quickly." Frank, sensing the growing urgency, moved decisively toward the cabinets, searching methodically through the medical supplies Cara had brought. Frank's typically gruff demeanor was now overshadowed by focused determination. His movements precise and purposeful, he handed Cara a vial of antibiotics, his dark eyes reflecting genuine concern. "This should help," he said quietly. Cara nodded gratefully, immediately preparing the injection. Snow whimpered weakly as the needle pierced his soft fur, prompting Echo to shift anxiously, a soft growl escaping her throat. Nathan swiftly comforted Echo, stroking her massive paw gently, his voice calm yet firm. "It's okay, girl. We're helping him." Echo's tense muscles gradually relaxed beneath Nathan's reassuring touch. As the medication took effect, Snow's breathing stabilized slightly, yet his condition remained fragile. Nathan rose, pacing anxiously across the worn wooden floorboards, clearly troubled. "This storm couldn't have come at a worse time," he muttered, frustration evident. Frank glanced sharply at Nathan, understanding the underlying fear in his friend's voice. "We've faced worse together, Nathan," Frank reminded firmly, his deep voice steadying. "We'll get through this too." Nathan paused, recognizing the depth of sincerity in Frank's words. Years of bitterness had finally dissolved into mutual trust, creating a powerful bond of renewed friendship and resilience. Outside, a sudden loud crack echoed fiercely, followed immediately by a heavy crash against the cabin's roof, shaking the entire structure violently. Nathan immediately rushed toward the window, squinting futilely into the blinding storm. A large branch hit the roof, he explained quickly, turning urgently toward Frank. We have to check for damage. It could compromise our shelter. Frank nodded grimly, pulling on his heavy coat, and the two men moved swiftly toward the door. Cara called out urgently from behind, voice firm yet cautious. Be careful. Don't risk yourselves unnecessarily. The bears need you both safe. Nathan acknowledged her warning with a quick nod before stepping bravely into the storm. Outside, the wind lashed mercilessly at them, cold slicing painfully against exposed skin. Frank's powerful frame steadied Nathan as they carefully circled around the cabin's perimeter, straining desperately against the relentless gusts. At the rear of the cabin, they discovered the massive branch, partially splintered, embedded deeply into the roof, snow piling dangerously atop it. We need to move this quickly, or the roof will collapse, Frank shouted urgently above the wind's deafening roar. Nathan nodded resolutely, and together they strained against the heavy branch, muscles burning fiercely under the tremendous effort. Inside, Cara maintained vigilant watch over Echo and Snow, soothing Echo's increasing agitation as the cabin groaned alarmingly beneath the added weight of snow. Cara knew instinctively that if Nathan and Frank failed, their shelter would be compromised irreparably. Anxiety tightened her throat, yet she projected calm confidence for Echo's sake. Outside, after a grueling struggle, Nathan and Frank finally dislodged the heavy branch, sending it crashing safely away from the vulnerable structure. They quickly cleared additional debris, shoring up weakened sections with emergency supports and reinforcing beams, using skills honed through years of survival in harsh climates. As the last plank was secured firmly, they exchanged exhausted yet triumphant grins, relief and pride evident despite their fatigue. Returning swiftly inside, Nathan immediately approached Cara, checking anxiously on Snow's condition. "Any change?" he asked urgently. Cara shook her head, eyes grave. "He's stable for now, but still weak. The infection isn't clearing fast enough." Nathan clenched his jaw tightly, frustration evident. Frank stepped closer, his expression resolute. "We still have options," he reminded gently. "Nathan, do you still have your old snowmobile? Perhaps we could risk a run into town for stronger medication or assistance." Nathan hesitated momentarily, wary of risking the storm. Yet one glance at Snow's vulnerable form erased all doubt. "We have no choice," Nathan replied decisively. "I'll prepare the snowmobile immediately." Cara's blue eyes filled with admiration and concern as Nathan and Frank readied themselves quickly. "Please be cautious," she urged softly. "We'll keep them safe until you return." Frank nodded reassuringly, pulling his thick hood tightly around his grizzled face, determination radiating strongly. The door swung open once more, icy wind screaming defiantly as Nathan and Frank disappeared bravely into the blizzard's heart. Cara moved resolutely toward Echo, comforting her gently, murmuring quiet reassurances to soothe her anxious heart. Echo gazed back steadily, immense trust now clearly evident in her soulful eyes, even as worry clouded them deeply. Outside, Nathan navigated expertly through blinding snow, Frank clinging tightly behind him, both men driven powerfully by their desperate mission. The snowmobile roared loudly, fighting valiantly against fierce winds and relentless drifts. Nathan's experienced instincts guided them steadily, even as visibility deteriorated further. Hours passed with agonizing slowness, each moment a fierce battle against nature's brutal fury. At last, faint lights from Frostmoor emerged faintly ahead, hope igniting fiercely within both men. Arriving swiftly in town, they hurried immediately toward Frostmoor's clinic, bursting urgently through the entrance. Dr. Hannah Clark, a calm, capable woman in her early 40s, immediately stepped forward, concern evident in her bright green eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. Her slender frame conveyed quiet authority and warmth simultaneously, her chestnut hair tied neatly back in a practical bun. "Nathan, Frank, what's happened?" she asked urgently, recognizing instantly their desperation. Nathan swiftly explained Snow's critical condition, his voice tight with urgency. Hannah nodded decisively, moving immediately toward cabinets filled meticulously with medication. "Take these, stronger antibiotics and anti-inflammatories. They'll stabilize him until rescue can reach you safely," she instructed firmly, handing over medical supplies quickly yet calmly. "Stay safe. I'll alert the rescue team immediately." Nathan and Frank thanked her sincerely, gratitude deeply evident, before rushing swiftly back toward the snowmobile. The return journey was even more treacherous, exhaustion threatening their focus severely, yet sheer determination pushed them relentlessly onward. Finally, lights from the cabin appeared faintly through swirling snow, guiding them safely home. Bursting urgently inside, Nathan immediately delivered medications into Cara's waiting hands. Relief flooded her eyes, gratitude shining clearly. Together, they swiftly administered treatments to Snow, holding their breaths anxiously until the cub's breathing steadied noticeably. Echo, sensing her cub's improvement, relaxed deeply, sighing softly in profound relief. Outside, the storm finally began subsiding, wind easing gradually, danger retreating at last. Inside, hope reignited powerfully within each heart, strengthened immeasurably by courage, unity, and determination. Echo and Snow rested peacefully, safe once more, their lives forever entwined profoundly with Nathan, Cara, and Frank, united strongly through shared adversity and unyielding compassion. As dawn broke gently over Frostmoor, the fierce storm gradually receded, leaving behind a pristine landscape draped in glistening white snow, reflecting sunlight in dazzling brilliance. The wind subsided into a calm whisper, and the sky transitioned slowly from deep indigo to soft, rosy hues. Nathan Brooks stood quietly at the window of his cabin, his sturdy frame silhouetted against the emerging daylight, feeling profound gratitude as he watched the serenity outside. Beside him stood Frank Dawson, rubbing tired eyes, relief visibly softening his typically rugged features. Behind them, Cara Mitchell moved gently around Echo and Snow, her careful hands ensuring their comfort, her auburn hair glowing softly in the gentle morning light filtering through frost-covered windows. A low rumble soon interrupted the peaceful silence outside as rescue vehicles from the Aurora Wildlife Conservation Center slowly emerged on the horizon, winding cautiously down the snow-cleared road toward the cabin. Nathan exhaled deeply, the heavy weight of tension finally lifting from his broad shoulders. He exchanged a brief, relieved glance with Frank. "They're finally here," Nathan murmured softly, his voice tinged with quiet gratitude. Frank nodded solemnly, his dark eyes reflective. Both men understood deeply what these past few days had meant, not only for the survival of the bears, but for the renewal of their fractured friendship. Stepping quickly outside to greet the arriving vehicles, Nathan recognized Dr. Emily Carter immediately. Emily was a respected veterinarian in her early 30s, known locally for her unwavering dedication to wildlife conservation. She was petite yet strong, her short, dark blonde hair pulled neatly into a practical ponytail, framing a face that radiated intelligence and quiet authority. Emily's eyes, gentle hazel behind rimless glasses, sparkled warmly as she approached Nathan, extending a gloved hand confidently. "Nathan Brooks? Cara informed me about everything," she said warmly. "We'll take good care of Echo and Snow." Her reassuring presence calmed Nathan's lingering worries instantly. Alongside Emily was Mark Thompson, a robust man in his late 20s, tall and broad-shouldered, known among conservationists as both capable and unfailingly cheerful. His thick dark hair peeked out from beneath a heavy wool hat, and a broad, reassuring smile never left his youthful, friendly face. "Quite an adventure you've had out here," Mark said brightly, shaking Nathan's hand firmly. "We'll ensure they're safely transported. As the rescue team carefully entered the cabin, Echo lifted her head cautiously, protective instincts briefly stirring. Cara knelt beside her quickly, speaking softly, her calm voice immediately soothing the great bear. Echo relaxed once more, her large eyes reflecting trust and understanding. Snow, still weak yet visibly improved after Hannah Clark's medications, watched the newcomers with curious interest, his playful innocence slowly returning. Emily approached the bears cautiously, her movements gentle yet confident, immediately winning Echo's trust. Cara briefed her quietly about the treatments already administered, and Emily nodded appreciatively, clearly impressed by Cara's diligent care. Together, the team expertly moved Echo and Snow onto sturdy stretchers, carefully wrapping them in thermal blankets for the short journey to specialized vehicles waiting outside. Nathan and Frank assisted seamlessly, working side by side with Mark and the others, their actions unified by shared compassion and purpose. The process went smoothly. The bears settled comfortably inside heated transport trucks, ready for transfer to the conservation facility for continued recovery. Before departing, Emily turned toward Nathan, sincere gratitude evident in her gaze. "Your quick actions saved their lives, Nathan," she said earnestly. "You've given them a chance few ever receive. We'd be honored if you visited them at the center. Perhaps consider volunteering. Your knowledge and compassion would be invaluable." Nathan hesitated only briefly before nodding decisively, understanding deeply that his life had irrevocably changed through this extraordinary experience. "I'd like that," he replied sincerely, surprising himself with newfound clarity. Frank, watching quietly nearby, smiled warmly, clearly supportive of Nathan's new path. Cara approached, placing a gentle, reassuring hand briefly on Nathan's arm, her smile warm and encouraging. "It would mean a lot to the animals, and to us," she added softly, eyes sparkling with sincere friendship. Nathan met her gaze gratefully, sensing a deep bond of trust had formed among them during their shared trials. With final reassurances exchanged, the vehicles departed slowly toward the Aurora Wildlife Conservation Center, their precious cargo safely aboard. Nathan, Frank, and Cara watched quietly until the trucks disappeared completely beyond the snow-covered horizon, feeling profound relief mingled with gentle sadness. Yet their hearts swelled with pride, knowing Echo and Snow were finally safe, headed toward full recovery and eventual freedom. Over the following weeks, Nathan regularly visited the conservation center, volunteering alongside Cara, Emily, and Mark. His natural ease with wildlife and patient dedication quickly endeared him to both animals and staff. His friendship with Frank deepened further, the two men frequently working together at the center, their shared experiences forging an unbreakable bond. Nathan discovered profound fulfillment in his new role, realizing he had finally found the purpose that had eluded him for years following his brother's tragic loss. Months passed swiftly, winter softening gently into the first hints of spring. Eventually, the day arrived to release Echo and Snow back into their natural habitat. Nathan, Frank, and Cara traveled with the conservation team to a secluded area near Lake Aurora, carefully chosen for its peaceful remoteness and abundant resources. The sky above was clear and vibrant as twilight deepened, stars beginning to shimmer softly against darkening indigo. As the team carefully opened the transport crates, Echo and Snow cautiously stepped forward onto familiar snowy terrain, pausing briefly, sniffing the crisp air carefully. Then, with powerful, graceful strides, Echo moved confidently ahead, Snow bounding playfully at her side, clearly joyful and fully healed. Nathan watched, heart swelling with deep emotion, knowing their journey had reached this beautiful, rewarding conclusion. As darkness descended, a breathtaking aurora illuminated the heavens above, brilliant ribbons of green and purple dancing gracefully across the night sky, shimmering gently, casting magical reflections upon the icy lake surface. Nathan, Frank, and Cara stood quietly together beneath this celestial spectacle, faces lifted in awe toward nature's magnificent display, hearts deeply connected through shared adversity, compassion, and triumph. Frank placed a firm, brotherly hand gently upon Nathan's shoulder, his voice thick with emotion. Samuel would have been proud today. Proud of you, Nathan. You've honored his memory profoundly through kindness and forgiveness. Nathan nodded quietly, eyes glistening softly, grateful beyond words for Frank's unwavering friendship and understanding. Cara stood close by, smiling gently, her presence offering quiet reassurance, comfort, and steadfast support. Beneath the luminous beauty of the Aurora, their past wounds healed fully, bonds strengthened immeasurably, hearts forever connected through profound shared experiences. Echo and Snow disappeared gracefully into the vast wilderness, their silhouettes blending slowly into nature's embrace, free once more, healthy and whole. Nathan took a deep, peaceful breath, profound joy filling his heart. He had found purpose, redemption, friendship, and love through remarkable circumstances. He now understood fully the profound power of compassion, its ability to heal wounds, bridge differences, and renew hope. Beneath the gentle glow of the Aurora, Nathan's life began anew, illuminated softly yet powerfully by hope, compassion, and the beautiful promise of tomorrow. The beautiful journey of Nathan, Echo, Snow, and their friends teaches us that compassion, forgiveness, and unity can heal even the deepest wounds. Just as Nathan overcame bitterness and found new purpose by helping others, each one of us can bring light into the lives around us through acts of kindness and forgiveness every day. Remember, no storm lasts forever, and together we can weather any challenge life presents. If this story touched your heart, please share your thoughts in the comments below. Let us know how compassion and forgiveness have influenced your own life. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more inspiring stories like this. May God bless you all and keep you safe in his gentle embrace. If you believe in the power of kindness and forgiveness, please comment amen.